Welcome everybody, and Anaïs, I let you the floor to introduce the webinar. And thank you for organizing with IFAD, the IFAD team with Marie-Aude and Matthew this second webinar on biodiversity.
Yes, exactly. Hello, everyone. My name is Anaïs. I'm a communication consultant at the Agri-PDB platform, which is hosted by IFAD. As Thierry said, we are very happy to welcome you all to today's webinar dedicated to financing nature-positive agriculture, what public development banks can do. Actually, as he said, this is the second session of this learning event. The first one was done in 2025 December and featured public development banks, representatives of the East and Southern Africa, and also the Latin America and the Caribbean regions. So this time we really wanted to have this additional session involving representatives from the Asia and the Pacific region to learn from their experiences. At the Agri-PDB platform, natural positive agriculture represents a core priority given its importance to food security, soil health, water quality, and climate resilience. In fact, agroecology, which is one of the key pathways within natural positive agriculture, has been the first working group that we have launched in 2022. And ever since, the PDB platform never stopped pushing forward efforts towards the integration of agroecology into agricultural finance and development. This is also because PDBs hold a unique position in driving a transition towards more sustainable agricultural practices, either by protecting portfolio value, reducing long-term risk, or strengthening the client resilience, and also aligning these investments with global sustainability agendas. So in today's webinar, we really aim to provide you, the participants, with a clearer understanding of the importance of biodiversity in agricultural finance and offer practical insights into what natural positive investment can look like in practice, as well as the challenges and also the opportunities of effectively integrating biodiversity into PDB's portfolio. I am very happy also to introduce our panelists today. So firstly, you will hear from our colleagues from the IFAD Biodiversity team, which helped us, we co-organized this event with them. So I welcome Mrs. Marie-Aude Even, who is the Senior Technical Specialist, and Mr. Matthew Mather, who is the Climate and Biodiversity Specialist. Then we will also listen to Mrs. Christian Eringhaus, who is from the KfW. She's an expert on also biodiversity and will share some of the KfW engagement in financing nature-positive agriculture. And last but not least, we will hear from two representatives from the PKSF Bangladesh, Mrs. Tanvir Sultana, welcome. She's the Deputy General Manager, and also Mrs. Jasmine Aha, who's the manager at PKSF, from Bangladesh. And just before starting, I wanted to let you know that this event is recorded and will be then shared to our YouTube channel and website, which I will share on the chat. And I also invite you to just add any question that you have on the chat. We will have a dedicated session towards the end of this learning event. So you can just type your questions and we will address them later on. So now, without further ado, welcome again to you all, and I pass the floor to you, Marie-Aude.
Good morning. Sorry, I had a technical issue with my micro, so I'll go without the micro. So as mentioned, I am Marie-Aude Even. I'm the Senior Biodiversity Specialist in IFAD, and we coordinate now the implementation of our biodiversity and climate strategy. So I'll start with providing you, so the presentation will explain a bit why it matters for Public Development Bank and farmers and what it means to invest in biodiversity. So I'll start with some basic explanation on what is biodiversity. First, as a reminder, biodiversity is a diversity of species that you all know. I mean, we have different types of crops and animals and so on, but also the diversity of genes. And I think in agriculture, we also know that well. The diversity, for instance, of maize species and different agrobiodiversity is huge. but also the diversity of ecosystems as a basics for the diversity of species and genes. So why it matters for Public Development Bank? Because these ecosystems, genes, and species provide ecosystem services that are directly relevant to the business and that you are finding. First, on production. As you know, pollinators, I mean, most of the crops depend on pollinators. The soil biodiversity is crucial for soil health. The biodiversity of food is also crucial, of course, for nutrition, medicine, all the diversity of plants we have, also for our health. Ecosystem services, non-polluted water, air. I mean, we are in the part of Asia where, of course, you're very familiar with the issues related to air pollution, but also we all depend on nature for recreation, for going out, ecotourism, and so on, and climate change is also a very important service it provides. I mean, ecosystems help regulate the climate. Mangrove protect a lot of your coastlines. And of course, the diversity of species provides you a lot of room for adaptation. So why it matters is because these different services, when they are destroyed, they generate risks, loss, but when they are supported, they generate revenues. For instance, different data shows that pollinators have about 235 to 570 billion a year, I estimated. Agrobiodiversity, 150 billion a year. In the value chain, we have a bio-input market that is rising and is expected to triple to 22 billion by 2033. Finally, in value chain, a lot of the private sector is more and more sensitive to traceability, certification, premium markets, and so on. At ecosystems level, a lot of data shows that restoration generates 7 to 30 USD per 1 USD restoration. Mangrove can generate over 65 billion USD. Watershed, nature-based solutions generate jobs. Agrobiodiversity increase adaptive capacities, benefits, climate finance, and so on. The other important element as context to understand is the connection between biodiversity and climate. First, this one again shows a different connection between biodiversity loss and how that affects the farms. We've just mentioned that we have a lot of biodiversity loss in agriculture. 50% of agricultural land are degraded. 70% of fresh water is withdrawn by agriculture, plus it's a major source of pollution. Degraded watersheds heighten the cost of maintenance, of irrigation, infrastructure, lost water. 30% of marine fish are overfished. So we have a lot of data on biodiversity loss. And that affects directly the farm that are vulnerable to that. I mean, food loss from climate hazards, pollinators loss affect 35% of the crops, degraded land stored 40 to 60% less water, 355 million people derive a lot of the income, about 22% from forest product. And we have a lot of health hazards that have been also mentioned. So all these different biodiversity loss affect productivity of the farms you support and increase climate and health risk for your clients. All these generate credit risk, operational market risk, rising, and we have also disclosure expectations from the bank. So if you're financing and profitable and sustainable farm, you may also infer reputational risk. So all this affects profitability of your business. But what you may not fully know is how that connects fully to climate change. On one hand, climate change is a major driver of biodiversity loss and ecosystem loss. On the other hand, deforestation, land degradation increase GHG emissions and accelerate climate change. And as you know, climate risk is a very big factor of farm vulnerability, and that increased vulnerability. So these are some elements just to provide you bigger context on why it matters and what is biodiversity and how it connects. Now I'll hand over to Matthew, who will delve a little bit more in the details of why it matters for PDB and what does it mean in practice. Over to you, Matthew.
Thanks for that, Mariade. So thanks for that introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means for Agri-PDBs to invest in biodiversity and some of the challenges as well. And opportunities for banks. So let me start by just framing how PDBs can approach biodiversity. So we typically see sort of two levels of engagement, and this is kind of built also from a framework developed by WWF recently on PDBs and biodiversity. So first, the kind of foundation, so greening finance. So this is about reducing harm to biodiversity across portfolios through better.
Matthew, we hear.
Okay, now we can hear you well, Matthew.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just we lost you for a few seconds. If you can go back to your point.
Okay. Okay, so this brings sort of clear benefits. So it supports. Sorry, yeah, you can go on. So it supports eligibility for partnerships with IFIs, strengthens compliance with frameworks like the Nature Financing Disclosure Framework or TNFD. And also, as Mario had mentioned, it's about reputation and positioning as well for partnerships. Second is about financing green. So this is where banks go further, actively investing in nature positive activities. So here the incentives are broader. It's about access to concessional funds like the GEF, the GCF, development of new products and markets, and access to premium markets, as well as support to national targets in a lot of cases. For instance, Vietnam, as a public sector, 30% finance targets on green activities. And often underestimated as well is about about lowering climate risk through adoption of agroecology and sustainable practices. So this slide now is about what it really means to invest in nature finance activities. So interventions that will have a positive effect on nature. So first is about sort of your sort of standard ESC compliance, which we can categorize as greening finance. So this is the sort of first step about changing the systems of financing for PDBs, so safeguards, screening, avoiding harmful activities. Then the first practical step. So the first is about reducing drivers of biodiversity loss. So these drivers include land use change, pollution, climate change, invasive species, and exploitation. So this includes agroecology, regenerative practices, such as crop rotations, cover crops, which improve soil health and soil biodiversity, and as well as sustainable fisheries, integrated pest management to reduce pollution, etc. So these are typically sort of simple, easy wins, and they can build naturally on what a lot of banks might already be doing on, for instance, climate smart agriculture, etc. Then the second is about restoration and conservation. So this might refer to reforestation, agroforestry, watershed, wetland restoration. So here there's more complexity involved. So this often needs to be delivered as part of a landscape approach with strong governance mechanisms across the landscape, often landscape financing as well in a lot of cases, and it might require more grants, including from climate environment funds. Then finally is about enabling policies. So these are the activities which should be combined with the first two, really as a package to support the biodiversity aims. So this might range from supporting sort of integrated spatial planning, subsidy reforms, data monitoring as well, which is critical, in case of deforestation for traceability, etc. So then we're looking at this first sort of level of the framework is on greening finance, so reducing the harm to biodiversity. So these are low-cost sort of practical entry points, many of which banks might already be doing, and we've selected a few of these key actions from the lowest. So we're starting with the sort of more easy to introduce, which is sort of exclusion lists, minimum conditions, adding or aligning with IFI exclusion lists. And introducing these basic conditions such as no financing for the conversion of natural habitats. So next, going up a little bit.
We lost you again. Matthew?
I'm just gonna let him know.
Diversity value area.
Okay. Now we can hear you back.
Okay. And then we have managing risk through intermediaries. So, PDBs that work with local banks. So it means ensuring they too apply these basic biodiversity checks. Also about improving monitoring and transparency. So this can be as simple as combining remote sensing alerts with light reporting from borrowers. And then finally, strengthen safeguards and systems. So this might be a bit more advanced. It might mean embedding biodiversity and environments into environmental social management systems, including the mitigation hierarchy on avoiding, reducing, restoring, and then offsetting risk. So this slide really goes into the second part of the framework. So financing green, or how PDBs can actively scale nature positive investments. So starting with some key investment opportunities and what the actual investments are for producers within these. So we've chosen a few here. So first, sustainable agriculture and value chains within them. So this in many cases requires finance for agroecological inputs, certification, and even traceability systems increasingly in a lot of cases. So second is on restoration, conservation, watershed management. So this commonly requires investments in tree planting and maintenance, land rehabilitation, but also the governance mechanisms, community coordination, long-term training, stewardship, etc., to ensure the sort of sustainability. Third, increasingly we're seeing as Mario mentioned, the bio-input market that's really scaling, and it's going to scale significantly over the coming decades. So this sort of technology and services, irrigation technologies as well that can support these biodiversity aims. Then to implement these sorts of systems, farmers and SMEs face a common set of barriers, and this is where the sort of bottlenecks really start. So typically face high upfront investment costs, especially when shifting production systems with new inputs, which does put off a lot of producers as well. Delayed or uncertain returns, particularly for agroecology or restoration, where the benefits may materialize over several seasons. Limited collateral and small which can really restrict sort of access to finance. Technology and knowledge gaps, especially for newer practices, and often uncertain land tenure, which discourages this sort of long-term investment. So even where finance is available, uptake can remain low because the investment simply doesn't fit the risk profile or income cycle. So at the same time, as you can see, banks face their own constraints, which explains why supply is also can also be limited. So they see in a lot of these investments high perceived risk and uncertain returns, especially for new or untested models, small ticket sizes, leading to some of these high transaction costs, and a lack of pipeline or bankable kind of investments, or aggregated projects. Limited data as well is another challenge, and difficulty monitoring outcomes. So from their perspective, these investments are not yet easily scalable or standardized. And this is where co-investments, particularly with IFADs like IFAD, become critical because they allow us to sort of bridge this gap. So we see a few levers here. So first, de-risking and blending. So through concessional finance, risk sharing instruments from different financiers and grant donors who can help de-risk. This, however, should be tailored to the client's needs. So for instance, agroecology may require more working capital, transition finance, whereas for restoration, grants, blended finance, longer tenors, grace periods can overcome some of these challenges. So second, building the pipeline and scaling by aggregating farmers into cooperatives, linking to value chains and developing sort of standardized models to scale. Then strengthening capacity and delivering systems by bundling finance with TA, advisory services, and market access as well. So this can't be done alone. And then data system and systems, so including MRV, digital tools, and traceability, which are essential for risk management and impact tracking. And then finally, ensuring that land tenure is fully addressed and producer organizations are strengthened in the process. So then finally, we'll just give a short case study here to illustrate how this might work in practice from an IFAD Brazil partnership with BNDES, a Brazilian PDB. So yeah, this combines over 300 million reais from IFAD, BNDES and GCF and public funds with a focus on climate resilient family farming and agroforestry. So what made this or what makes this, because it's design, it's just gone design stage, is this model so effective is this integrated approach. So first it's about building, so aggregating smallholders, developing these agroecology, agroforestry models in landscapes affected by deforestation and degradation. Second is about blending, so combining this concessional and commercial finance for a number of different investors to reduce the risk for producers and also these investors. And then third about bundling, so integrating the finance with technical assistance in infrastructure and extension services. So this is critical because we've seen a lot. We've seen from many examples that it's really about this kind of pairing with the enabling systems, which brings us stronger results for biodiversity. And this project is expected to restore 85,000 hectares and reach 75,000 households. And then finally, I just wanted to leave you with a kind of recap, but also some sort of key lessons and actions that sort of smaller PDBs to larger ones might be able to take. So starting with potentially smaller ones, so building the foundation. So on the greening side, it means introducing the basic sort of screening, exclusion lists, and financing green. So this can involve sort of piloting small practical products like agroecology and sustainable practice credit lines. For the medium PDBs, the focus shifts to strengthening systems, piloting at scale, including sort of spatial screening tools, which we're happy to go further in different sessions on how these can work, maybe bring in some of these partners involved. And then on the financing, piloting, some of these more kind of restoration landscape approaches like nature-based solutions with TA support. And then finally, for larger PDBs, the opportunities to transform portfolios and mobilize capital. So this means fully integrating biodiversity into safeguards, ESMS, and really making this part of the kind of institutional framework and architecture, and then deploying some of this finance to scale landscape level interventions and really attract private capital as well. And then, yeah, I'll leave it there. I've left a few references as well, which obviously we'll be sharing the slides after. So hopefully they can be of relevance for you as well. And thanks very much, and looking forward to hearing the remaining speakers from the banks.
Thank you very much, Matthew and Mario, for setting the scene of this webinar. I will now leave it over to you, Christian Eringhaus, and I wanted to apologize because at the beginning I did not say your title properly. So you're the Senior Sector Economist on Agriculture and Rural Development. So over to you, and I will share my screen on your behalf.
Can you please unmute, Christian?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Christiane Eringhaus. I am a sector economist. I used to be a portfolio manager on environment, forest and climate change programs, and then agriculture programs. So I'm kind of combining both worlds in my current job. And one of the things I'm responsible is also nature-based solutions in the agriculture sector. So I'm very happy to be able to share some of the KfW experiences in this time. Next slide, please. What I'll be doing is just an overview of the approaches that we have, and some more, some less, to support nature-positive agriculture. Then I'll focus on some examples from India, which are more based on cooperation with governments and scaling of agroecology, organic agriculture programs. And then I will go a little bit to Latin America to go into more financial sector examples, which have interesting lessons learned, and try to summarize in the time allotted. Next slide, please. So when we look at our food systems engagement, we have broadly 5 thematic areas, 3 main ones, which is irrigation and strengthening of integrated water resource management, like many development banks, including those present here. Then the second one is supporting agroecological practices and sustainable land use at more landscape scale. Further than promoting sustainable and fair value chains. And as more cross-cutting issues, we have nutrition and affordable diets and the issue of land tenure. And of course, a lot of this is interlinked. No? And then across these different thematic areas, we have different types of projects. We have classical input-based investment measures that finance infrastructure or rollout or scale up of TA programs. We have results-based financing. We have policy-based financing, like some of the international development banks present here. And of course, a whole range of financial sector measures. Next, please. So if we try to situate where we see main entry points for nature-positive agriculture, in principle, they're everywhere, but where we find it right now in our portfolio is in the thematic area of supporting agricultural practices, sustainable land use, focusing on soils, primarily, but also in the value chain area where we do agrofinance, but also link up with infrastructure along the value chains and such. And at the same time, we are also seeing a trend towards looking at irrigation through a greener lens and greening that. And of course, we see land tenure, especially long-term land tenure rights, as an important element for more nature-positive agriculture, given the long-term time frame that's necessary for the impacts to materialize. Next. If we look at some of the approaches and instruments, I can't get into this, but I try to make a bit of a compilation here. We have emerging in the last 5 years programs to scale agroecology and organic agriculture programs, which are very obviously nature positive. But then, as many others, we have integrated water resource management and sustainable land management programs at landscape scale. We have a whole portfolio of agroforestry, reforestation, landscape restoration activities with nature-based solutions. Then we have lots of experience with payments for ecosystem services, mostly in conservation biodiversity programs. But in the end, a lot of this is aimed at agricultural practices. And here I can't go into it right now, but this is actually an interesting topic. What is linked more to government systems, but what could be also linked to agrofinance in the financial sector. As said, we're also greening irrigation programs and a little bit in terms of greening finance. We are mainstreaming biodiversity ourselves in KfW, but supporting a lot of financial intermediaries in their ESHS, but also in their MRV and the appraisal of biodiversity-linked issues. We have a number of credit lines from national financial sectors, and most notably, we have a number of impact funds with blended finance, as Matthew also said, where we support nature-positive agriculture. And a small but interesting section is supporting agrobiodiversity and climate-resilient food systems, both at international level through the Global Crop Trust, but also at regional and national level. That's a very big, quick run through the broader range of approaches, but I'll go into a deep dive on India right now. Next, please. So here we have 2 programs in India, which some of you might know, and a quite famous one in the recent years is the zero budget natural farming pioneered in Andhra Pradesh. KfW was not involved in pioneering this, but once the government decided to scale that, we provide finance to scale this through results-based finance. So the disbursement is based on people trained, additional farmers enrolled in the program, and the rate of adoption and implementation of these practices. So if you want to know more, I don't have time to go into the individual practices. It's very fascinating, very important here. This is really aimed at severely degraded landscapes, extreme poverty, and scaling that not just for commercial purposes, but just for stabilizing livelihoods. Another program that is starting, so the grant phase already started, but the loan phase will start this year, is sustainable land management in Meghalaya. And here the overlap also with IFAD is quite large, and ADB. We all partner with the Meghalaya Basin Management Authority. The government of Meghalaya has ambitious goals to scale organic agriculture. And so we contributed first with a grant to pilot the whole system. And now we are going in with a loan to scale this, both in terms of the actual practices, but also the scaling of a certification system and the value chain development. The implementation is not through results-based finance, but it's actually quite a complex implementation structure, which also relies on the institutional strengthening that IFAD has done with farmers' organizations. So there's a lot of interrelationship. Next bit, please. So and then a very different example, more on the tech side, is the investment in the Omnivore Fund, which is a impact venture capital fund in India that supports a whole range of agri-fintechs, which is not exclusively focused on nature-positive agriculture, but it also includes nature-positive relevance, such as the bio-inputs that were already mentioned. Next, please. In the last minutes that I have, I will go to Latin America, primarily to show some good practice examples. Our most famous blended finance vehicle, impact funds, is the Eco Business Fund, which we co-founded. And it's been quite successful in promoting biodiversity-friendly agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. The time is too short to actually go into the details, but it's what's very important. It's both providing finance through local financial institutions as well as directly, but also quite substantial TA to financial institutions and to farmers to actually incorporate biodiversity-friendly assessment frameworks and practices into their everyday life. Eligibility criteria here are a green list, so good practices, green list of good practices, as well as eligible certificates, which also aim at more consolidated businesses. Next, please. We now have an example actually through a national public development bank, and our colleagues from AFD are probably very familiar with FIDA as well. I don't know if FIDA is present. Right now, we are kind of using the experiences with Eco Business Fund at the international impact fund level to replicate that at the national level, also to reach more smallholder type farmers. And here, as you see, it is quite a large credit line, but it also has quite a large grant component, which stresses the point that a lot of technical assistance is needed to actually build these systems, both within our own organizations, but also the partner bank, and with the farmers themselves. Here, the eligibility criteria have been amended, not just with the green list and the eligible certificates, but also track records of environmental projects that were implemented with FIDA or in other development programs that build a trustworthy track record on biodiversity-friendly practices. So how much do I still have time for lessons learned, or am I over time?
Maybe if you can, just finish in 1 minute.
Next slide. So just maybe next slide, please. So maybe just on a nutshell, there are two main approaches that we see: the scaling of government programs built on political will. Most of these are aimed at more poorer smallholders and as well as agri-finance. TA is very important, as was already stressed, but at the same time, we still see the high perceived risks as a problem, and the incentives to the financial institutions are very important to to embark on this. As you all know, agriculture is difficult already in the competitiveness with other sectors, and adding these ecological requirements it makes this difficult. Value chain and market development, very important, and as well as the policy and regulatory environment, the incentives both at the farmer as well as the financial level hinge on that. Biodiversity mainstream is on the rise, as was said, but we are also seeing a little bit of a fragility in this moment as other problems are in the world. And we are wondering to what extent biodiversity mainstreaming will continue in that speed. And finally, impact measurement and reporting is evolving. The technologies are becoming better and cheaper, and we are confident that this will be easier in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian, for providing insights into KFW's natural positive agriculture approaches and instruments through also key successful case studies. I will now turn it over to our representatives from Bangladesh and from the PKSF. So Mrs. Tanvia Sultana and Jasmine Aha, just before I let you the floor, I just wanted to remind everyone that after their presentation, we will have a Q&A session. So feel free to add your comments. And I have seen that I think Nora, someone raised their hand. Mrs. Nora Alanakayan. We will give you the floor also at the beginning of the Q&A session. So thank you all. Over to you, Mrs. Sultana.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon from Bangladesh. And this is Tanvi Sultana from PKSF. I am Deputy General Manager and working agriculture economics and working for the Inclusive Finance and Resource Mobilization Unit. And I am joined today by my colleague, Jasmine Ara. She is a manager and she is the technical expert in agriculture. Can you share the presentation? Okay, thank you. Thank you. We present PKSF integrated approach to embedding biodiversity and climate resilient directly to rural finance. Today, we will share how PKSF operationalize these concepts in practices. First of all, I would like to share the agricultural landscape. Agriculture remains the backbone in Bangladesh. The country holds remarkable global ranking in different areas. However, despite strong growth and challenges remain in land uses, productivity, and sustainability. Next slide, please. I skip some slide because of the time's constraint. You know, the PKSF is a apex development organization established in 1990 by the government. Our role is not just financing, but also capacity building, technology transfer, and market linkage, which is PKSF make the core differential from the private development bank. We use an indirect channeling model through our MFIs, ensuring deep rural outreach. Unlike bank, we focus livelihood, improvement, sustainability, not just credit delivery model. And this is the main difference from the private development bank and PKSF. And we have a very good idea from our previous presenter about the biological pillar of the agricultural stability. That's why I'm skipping this slide. Next slide, please. And this slide highlights 4 major climate stress affecting Bangladesh agriculture, that is flooding, cyclone, drought, and salinization. And they each require targeted and integrated response. And I will share our practical experience or cases regarding these issues in the next slide. So, why biodiversity matters for agriculture? PKSF recognize biodiversity loss as a credit core risk because healthy soil, diverse species, and functional ecosystem are the real foundation of every agricultural loan. That's why PKSF is exactly support nature positive and diversified farming system. Next slide, please. Before I move to the slide, I would like to acknowledge IFAD as a key and long-standing development partners of PKSF, supporting the journey from pilot to scale. So far, we have completed five projects with the support of IFAD. The biggest lesson learned from IFAD is we mainstreaming the seasonal agricultural lending, cattle microinsurance, micro-enterprise value chains, none of which existed in Bangladesh semi-fied sector before IFAD PKSF collaboration. Next slide, please. So now let me share some practical experience of how nature positive agriculture works in the ground level. First one is the Agri-Ecological Farming System, restoring soil biodiversity. This case is from the northern part of the Bangladesh. Under this intervention, PKSF introduced Agri-Ecological Farming System, a nature positive farming approach built on 5 key practices, that is mixed cropping, organic inputs such as vermicompost, cow dung, integrated pest management, zero chemical pesticides, and community managed native variety seed banks. Using this intervention, 80% of the farmer is now adopted these biological farming technologies. That means the entire chore is now green. The biodiversity results are remarkable. Soil organic matter improved from 0.72% to 90%. Soil bacteria more than double, and earthworm density jumped from just 1 to 216 per square meter. It's a clear sign that the soil is coming back to life. The economic results are equally strong. So we can find that nature positive practices are economically viable for sustainable agriculture. Next slide, please. And the second case study moves to fisheries. Under this intervention, PKSF introduced IoT-based smart aquaculture technology, deploying sensor kits in fish pond that continuously measure 4 critical water parameters, that is dissolved oxygen, water temperature, pH level, and ammonia concentration, all connected to a mobile app that sends instant alert for timely corrective measures. This real-time monitoring speaks the result clearly. Fish mortality dropped 40%, stocking density increased, overall production rose by 30 to 40%, feed conversion ratio moved 2 to 1.5, and cutting feed cost 20 to 25%. Most importantly, net profit per cycle increased approximately 6,000, around 40% higher than before. The key message of this intervention is that technology plus finance improve both productivity and environmental outcomes. Next slide, please. And our third case study is about turning waste to wealth. The biodiversity into business. The slide shows our circular economy approach in livestock, aquaculture, and agricultural waste. We convert waste into value in 3 ways. First, livestock waste is turned to organic fertilizer, improve soil health, and reducing the chemical uses. Second, fish waste like scales is processed into high-value products, creating zero-waste aquaculture model and increase the farmer's income. Third, agriculture waste is used as animal feed, reducing cost and environmental pressure. Overall, through this technology, we reduce pollution, restore biodiversity, and create new income opportunities for the farmers. Next slide, please. Our fourth case study addresses one of Bangladesh's most urgent challenges. How do small farmers continue to produce food when climate change is making their land saltier, drier, and more flood prone? This slide shows how we support climate resilient agriculture in different risk areas. In coastal areas, we use salt tolerant varieties to farmer can maintain yield despite salinity. Our drought prone areas, we combine drought tolerant seeds with efficient irrigation, saving about 30% water. In flood prone areas, in Howard, we use early maturing varieties so farmer can harvest before flood. So overall, this approach helps farmer adapt to climate risk and significantly increase income and food security. Next slide, please. Our fifth case study comes from coastal and saline zone, where saline tidal intrusion make traditional farming nearly impossible. PKSF response in mini pond model here, a climate adaptive aquaculture solution developed with the assistance of IFAD. Farmer built mini pond above the saline tidal intrusion level, which harvest rainwater and allow year-round fish farming. Farmer can culture freshwater fish even in the saline zone and extend the production season by 6 to 8 months. We also provide flexible financing, which is equally innovative. Pond construction loan are repaid post-harvest, not monthly, matching repayment to the farmer's income. This is the climate smart finance, not just climate smart financing. As a result, farmer income increased significantly while ensuring zero chemical use and better climate resilience. Next slide, please. And our final case study is introduce one of the PKSF most innovative nature positive technologies, that is the black soldier fly larva production, an eco-friendly alternative protein source for aquaculture feed. We convert kitchen and market waste into insect larvae, which used as highly quality fish feed and organic fertilizer. This reduces feed cost by 30 to 40% and creates circular economy. For example, one farmer increased income from 15,000 to around 90,000 per month. Overall, it creates jobs, reduces waste, improves income while supporting sustainable agriculture. Next slide, please. This slide shows the PKSF channel finance to nature positive agriculture through 4-tier finance architecture. And PKSF getting the fund from different development partners, that is IFAD, Green Climate Fund, ADB, UE, and World Bank. And PKSF providing this fund to our partner organization with a concessional rate, green financing, and with a reduced interest rate. Along with the development partners finance, PKSF have own agricultural finance with limited technical services. And partner organization provide this loan to the farmer level with a flexible repayment on the basis of their activities with some risk mitigation services. And also we are trying to build their capacity through training, and we also transfer some kind of technology to the farmers. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights PKSF nature positive agriculture is a pathway out of poverty. It helps farmers in 3 key ways. First, reduce vulnerability by protecting them from climate shocks like flood and salinity. Second, it improves nutrition through diversified crop and safe vegetables. And third one, it creates decent job by turning farmer into green micro-enterprise. So it's not a luxury, it's essential for surviving, resilience, and economic growth. Next slide, please. Despite our progress, we have identified 11 critical bottlenecks to continue to slow the scaling of nature positive agriculture in Bangladesh. We have identified 2 categories. One is structural and farmer level challenges, and another is market policy and institutional challenges. At the farmer level, major issues include climate stress, chemical dependency, lack of knowledge, limited finance, and small size. and land small size. At the same level, we face market barriers, lack of certification, policy gap, labor shortage, and mindset of the farmer. Scaling requires not just finance, but also policy reform, market development, and capacity building. It's a holistic approach is needed for sustainable development. And finally, next slide, please. Finally, PKSF identified 5 clear directions to strengthen the nature positive finance contribution. First, we need to reduce chemical dependency, restore soil health. Second, strengthening farmer knowledge and confidence through extension support. Third, expand blended finance and prevent distresses. At the same level, we must improve market and certification and support policy reform, youth engagement, and collective farming. So we believe that with the right finance architecture, the right technology, and right partnership, nature positive agriculture can be the most powerful poverty graduation tool in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and it was very useful to have this presentation from the context of Bangladesh and how your bank is also proposing a structure of a project where we take care of biodiversity in this context. Thanks a lot. Anaïs, shall we open the Q&A?
Yes, thank you very much. So I think we can start with a first question. It's someone who is anonymous, but he asked to IFAD presenter, could you please elaborate on the risk sharing mechanism? What kind of risks included and how it is being shared?
So I guess I can come in here. So I missed that question in the QA. Can you just say it again? Sorry. Is it on the challenges?
Could you please elaborate on the risk sharing mechanism? What kind of risks included and how it is being shared?
Okay. So basically we can have sort of various risk sharing mechanisms. So that can be as we sort of mentioned with some of the projects. So where IFAD kind of acts as a guarantee, providing guarantees for loans and investment, but we also use increasingly as well climate and environment funds as well, which provide grants to sort of de-risk some of those mechanisms. So like the Brazil case, where the GCF comes involved, and then some of those sort of more high risk investments, such as sort of for the planting and for the maintenance, that's covered by that, and then some of the sort of TA and loans is maybe covered by more of the kind of concessional finance from IFAD and maybe PDBs as well. So it's about sort of kind of this sort of segregation, this split of what the different finance needs are, and ensuring that sort of the right finances and grantors are also kind of ensuring that they are sort of filling those needs.
And also bundling with insurance in a number of cases. I'll just take this opportunity to also acknowledge Lorna. She couldn't join because there was an APR meeting, but this presentation was also prepared with our rural finance specialists. They are the ones that also we are working with to do this kind of de-risking. But I think it would be good to hear also from the PKSF or KFW on this kind of questions, because you have more the foot on the ground on that. So that would be interesting to expand. But,
please, Ms. Sultana, can you give also some insight to this question?
Because if the risk mitigation is based on the product. For livestock, we have a risk mitigation services there. We provide veterinary services, vaccination services to the farmers. And another risk mitigation is we are trying to introduce in the crop also. And the livestock beef fattening is already implementing in the field level, and we are trying to implement these special services in the poultry culture also. And actually, PKSF agricultural loan is more flexible. You know, the repayment module is very much connected with the agricultural activities, and farmer can repay their loan after harvesting, and it depends on the tenure of the duration of the agricultural activities. And that's why another is when disaster occur, we supplement another loan to the farmer to reinvest the activities or agricultural activities. And this way we are trying to mitigate the risk of the farmer in the field level.
Thank you. I don't know if Christian, you want to complement?
There's more complementation. Of course, I mean, there are a number of risk mitigation measures, starting with TA, but in many cases, for instance, investing in irrigation reduces the risk, bundling with insurance, and linking adaptive practices with insurance is also good risk mitigating measures. Through our impact investment funds, of course, the KfW provides the first loss with mitigate risk for private investors, but some of our financial intermediaries also can offer guarantees, for instance, at different levels. KfW itself doesn't have a guarantee product, but through financial intermediaries, we can support guarantee schemes and these things. So there are a number of approaches which are too long to mention here, but these are some.
Thank you very much. We also have one question from Juan Pablo. He works at the Finagro PDB in Colombia. He shared that since their mandate is focused on providing financial services through first-year intermediaries, and they have no direct contact with producers, they have faced significant challenges in ensuring the adoption and retention of best practices. As a result, producers became dependent on subsidies, which is not fiscally sustainable. And he asks, what recommendations do you have for improving the learning effect and ensuring graduation? And he also added that in many cases, small-scale farmers in Colombia do not own the land they farm, but rather lease it. So they have no incentive to make the transition since they cannot benefit from these changes in the medium or long term. So then he asked, how have these strategies worked out for communities that leased the land? I don't know who's the most... who's the person who wants to take this one?
I can maybe try to the last question. Of course, this is a very important problem. No? One, for instance, in the Meghalaya context, for instance, one of the activities is to develop a lease system that has longer term leases. Now, for that very reason, no? Because this is a common problem. No? And as the government is a partner in the program, this is something that's possible to do. No? But of course, you're right. This is a very common problem. On the first question, as a APEC structure, it's difficult to keep track of adoption rates, but this is where TA across the different levels and mainstreaming across financial intermediary institutions becomes important, because the implementing financing intermediary needs to also include this into their performance systems, into their monitoring systems, into their environmental and social governance framework. And I think then we have a row of reporting that provides that information and stronger incentives to actually keep track of that.
Thank you. Over to you, Mariot.
Yeah, thank you. I thought PKSF will also mention, because they have a very effective system of collaborating with the partner organizations on the ground, I think, to do this kind of system. So I would like for you to evoke a bit, but for the meantime, I think something that is very important, I mean, as an agronomist, that's more the answer, is to make sure that the practices you're promoting are actually sustainable and viable on the ground, whether or not with the subsidies. So it's to really also be more adaptive and, provide package options and help the farmers monitor what works for them. So is to have this long term. What we do also is having this exit strategy from the start. So you evaluate also the value of the practice, not only considering the current conditions of the project, but considering the long term, and you work with the farmers to improve so that it makes sense. I mean, I think that's one of the most important, to be flexible. I think that's what PKSF mentioned as well. We can't impose some specific practices. We have to work, on participatory research and adaptation to local conditions, but always screening. And I think I liked what you presented in PKSF. You screen your practices on different frameworks. And sometimes we forget to check that. And I think that's very important. And second also is to check what are the enabling environment for this practice adoption. Because some of the agroecological practice, they require new seeds, new inputs, new systems. So you also have to work on the system. But I don't know if PKSF wants to share some stories, because I really love your system of partnership to the last mile with a lot of very localized. So over to you.
Yeah, please, Ms. Sultana, can you share some of the experience of Bangladesh to FID Agrocolombia?
Okay. Actually, we are working with the small and marginal farmer in Bangladesh. They have the limited land and they have lack of knowledge. So we are trying to introduce any kind of technology in a demonstration basis. And if they get a better result and they can use in a large scale, and other farmer will follow this technology in their field. In that way, we are trying to reduce the vulnerability of the farmer, and we are trying to mitigate, trying to ensure the nutritional security as well, because they produce the product, but they are not getting these produces. So we are trying to ensure the nutritional security also. And if they large or if they expand their activity, we are trying to ensure the employment also. It may be entrepreneurial level, or they can hire some small farmer or labor. In that way, they can create employment opportunity in that area. So following this technique, we are trying to reduce the vulnerability of the farmer.
Thanks a lot. I see that in the attendance we have many participants also from Eastern Africa. I saw Land Bank from South Africa, the Bank of Botswana, Malawi, Uganda. I don't have the world list. Land Bank Philippines was connected also. I don't know if one of them would have a last question before we close. So for all the participants, do not hesitate to contact us after this webinar and to raise a complementary question. And all the speakers will be happy to get back to you also. And Anaïs, do you want to conclude?
Yes, thank you very much. And yes, of course, you can reach back to us after this event, and we will address all your questions. So thank you all very much. To conclude, I just wanted to sincerely thank our panelists from Bangladesh, so Mrs. Tanvir Sultana and Jasmine Aha, for providing key insights into PKSF integrated approach to biodiversity and climate resilience in rural finance. I am sure that the PDBs present and any other participant who attended this meeting could learn from the experience you shared in building incentives for natural positive practices. Of course, I would also like to thank Mrs. Christiane Eringhaus for providing participants with a perspective from KFW in financing natural positive agriculture across different instruments and approaches. And eventually, special thanks to my colleague from IFAD, Marie-Aude Even and Matthew Mather, for making this event possible, and also for stressing how financing natural positive agriculture is central to the resilience, performance and long-term value of public development banks portfolio. And just for your information, we will have a follow-up, I guess, webinar on biodiversity in the coming month. So please stay tuned. And as per the Agri-PDB platform, on the 29th of April, we will have another webinar on the key performance indicators. So please just stay connected with us and let's continue this conversation. I wish you all a very good rest of the day and thank you all for your active participation. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.